Yes, God. Talk about a ram in the thicket.
I opened somebody else's home.
It's biblically speaking, it's your home until somebody else. Yeah. Well.
Put a ring on it.
Well. Yes, God. Thank you.
That's right.
She that one. I found my tablet, y'all. I don't know if I found it if the kids returned it. I'm not quite sure, but it showed up. It showed up, and that's all that matters. So welcome to the Friday Experience. Oh, let me let go of that. My God, it was just, I was the whole time. I was the whole thing just there. We would. Why am I still like? I feel something. I'm in worship. Right. Oh man. My God. Man. Well, welcome to the Friday Experience, y'all. I'm just so grateful to be here. Oh, that's what she was asking for? You're not disturbing me. Look, we real here in the Friday Experience. We drink water. We get thirsty. Amen. But we believe the word that says, if we drink of this water, we'll never thirst again. Yes, God. We believe that word. Some of y'all thirsty for the wrong thing, my God. Some of y'all thirsty for the right thing, but getting it the wrong way, my Lord. Let me stop preaching. Oh.
Okay. Somebody here?
Yeah, somebody's here. You know what's funny? Because our doorbell doesn't work at our house, so I'm not used to hearing that.
Okay.
So, all right, guys, welcome to the Friday Experience. My name is Pastor Lawrence Dufresne. Excited for the change that you are about to experience. We are live at, that's John. What up, John? He's one of my mentees, by the way.
Hi, John. I'm Sharona.
No,
Welcome.
he joined the military. He felt like he too manly now.
Oh, Lord.
You know what I'm saying? He feel like he's somebody now. He got a little paper in his pocket, and all of a sudden, let me stop. He be the only one who actually comes fairly regularly for pancakes on Saturdays. Y'all know I do pancakes. In the Huntsville area, I do pancakes on Saturdays. Come through, but come through early because I'm preaching. Well, no, what I'll do is let me know that you're coming. Are you coming for real? Because I'll make you some. Oh yeah, because you leaving anyway. No, what I'll do is I'll make yours and leave it there.
Oh, that's not fun.
Because I'm preaching in Birmingham. I'm preaching in Birmingham. Unless you don't want no pancakes. I feel you. No, when they come out fresh, yo.
Because you were there one time.
Ooh, and they come out fresh. Like fresh off.
Oh, now you just prayed against that, but I'm swollen.
Well, I mean, but if you come early, what time you plan on leaving? Yeah, my bad, guys. Yeah, you right. Cause I know you got sockets too. I'm joking.
Oh,
So, all right, guys. So, I'm excited about this discussion, and I'm excited about it because I feel like it's so relevant, and I feel like there's so much that people can add. You know what I mean? Like, this is really one of those, like, discussion. Not like we don't be having discussions. This is like one of those, like, let's really talk about this. Because today we're talking about cultivating your authority. That's what we're dealing with. Cultivating your authority. And I think, especially the text that we're coming from. Now, for those who don't know, and let me help break it down. What's up, Kiki? I see you. I'm trying to get you here live, Kiki. See.
She hates that.
I know she do.
She hates that song.
I ain't even talked to her about it yet, but I know she hates Drake now. Like Drake, she don't even listen to Drake no more. But one of the things that I try to do, and it's a preference of mine. I just want to let y'all know it's a preference of mine, just to help y'all understand where I be coming from. Usually when I'm like, if I'm preaching or if I'm like, having a discussion, I try my best to stay within like one particular passage. And the reason why I do that is because there's usually when we're in a passage, there's so much that we can exhaust from it, and we miss out in exhausting it because we've already moved on to like a different passage. You know what I mean? And we jump around, and I'm not saying jumping around is wrong. I want to be very clear. I'm not saying jumping around is wrong, but I feel like there's a lot that we miss. Because then when you really get that passage, when you go back to those other passages make like, well, at least for me, be like, oh, that makes more sense now Because what this was saying here, and I fully got this, so now I get that there. Then when you go back to this, like, now this even makes more sense. You know what I mean? So I've learned that when you spend a lot of time just kind of in a passage, really trying to break down with that passage, because there's so many principles, there are so many circumstances, so many conditions, and I can honestly say from my personal study, the Bible speaks to them all. Like, if we're dealing with adultery, there's so many different circumstances and causes for adultery that if we like take one passage on adultery, we won't get the like full scope. But if we don't get that one passage, we'll miss like the full scope of that context. You know what I mean? So people will be like, "Yo, I'm not getting anything," and it's like, well, you may have not gotten deep in that section to really find what you're looking for. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Like, there's so many conditions of fornication. There's so many ways that God even deals with idolatry. Our understanding of idolatry, you know what I mean? Like, there's just so many. Guilt, insecurities, you know what I'm saying? There's so much. So I like to deal with a passage, do our best, and I say our best because you really can't exhaust it. I'm not saying that just because that's a cliche, but if you really go deep into what the word is saying, when you think you've exhausted it, you wait like 6-7 years and someone hits you with, like, that was there the whole time. Like, it was there the whole time. How did I not see that? Like, you know what I mean? So God is always pouring out fresh wine. Man, that was so churchy, what I just said. Mm-hmm. That was mad churchy.
It's all right, though.
Showed us, like, I'm here for it, though. Yeah. But yeah, man, I forgot what I was. Oh yeah, so we talked about cultivating your authority, right? Yeah, that's what because I just went in that tangent, forgot where was that. So the text that we're going to come from, and I want somebody to read aloud for me. And y'all know me, I'm always trying to shorten it, but I'm not going to shorten this one. We're going to read the whole story. Mark 9. We're coming from Mark 9 specifically. You can also find this same story in Matthew 17. But I'm dealing with Mark 9 because of the last verse in Matthew. See, you know, it's like, I don't know, when you know a lot, like I know too much. You know what I'm saying? I know too much. So I be doing things just to avoid arguments that most people won't even know exist. You know? If that makes sense, you know, I just know too much. So I feel like Mark is a safer place to go to avoid any of the critics that get distracted from the unspiritual scholars who say things that are completely irrelevant to spiritual development. And I'm going to kind of just leave that there. Because every commentary is not for your development. Some of these Bible commentaries, they don't know him.
Racist? Uh-huh. Slave owners?
Yep. But they don't know him. They don't know him.
They were.
No, they were. And you're reading their commentary like that's also gospel. They didn't know him. They don't know him. So, I get into a lot of debates about what scholars say about certain things, and I'd be like, but what does the Spirit say? You want to tell me what the scholars are saying? What does the Spirit say?
They don't like that gospel.
No. Okay. I think I'm off my high horse. Or my soapbox. All right, Mark chapter 9. We're going to read verses 14 through 29. And if somebody can read it loud and clear so that Facebook can hear it and YouTube and ever I finally put it up there. Mark chapter 9, verses 14 through 29. Anybody.
Okay. You know, my versions be off, but I'm just going to...
It don't be off.
You do say sometimes.
It should be paraphrased, that's all.
I'm reading from ERV right now.
The English Revised? I'm sorry, go ahead.
Then Jesus, Peter, James, and John went to the other followers. They saw many people around them. The teachers of the law were arguing with followers. When the people saw Jesus, they were very surprised and ran to welcome him. Mm-hmm. Jesus asked, "What are you arguing about with the teachers of law?" A man answered, "Teacher, I brought my son to you. He is controlled by an evil spirit that keeps him from talking. The spirit attacks him and throws him on the ground. He foams at the mouth, grinds his teeth, and becomes very stiff." Doesn't that sound like a seizure?
It does.
Okay.
It may have been. "I
asked your followers to force the evil spirit out, but they could not. Jesus answered, "You people today don't believe. How long must I stay with you? How long must I be patient with you? Bring the boy to me." To what verse?
29.
Okay. So the followers brought the boy to Jesus. When the evil spirit saw Jesus, it attacked the boy. The boy fell down and rolled on the ground. He was foaming at the mouth. Jesus asked the boy's father, "How long has this been happening to him?" The father answered, "Since he was very young. The spirit often throws him into a fire or into water to kill him. If you can do anything, please have pity on us and help us." Jesus said to the father, "Why did you say if you can? Mm-hmm. All things are possible for the one who believes."
And we need to really, that's a crucial verse. We're not, I don't know where we're going to go. You know what I mean? We may come here, but I need someone to highlight that verse. If that's not a part of your affirmation, if that's not a part of your mantra, it's like,
I've literally been saying that the past 2 days. This is just timely.
No, it's because and I want you to keep reading, so don't lose your spot. But it's funny because Jesus is dealing with this scenario, but then Jesus gives a general principle out of this scenario, right? He's like, "What do you mean if I can do this, but not just this, all things?" You know what I mean? That's really, really profound, and I don't want us to miss that. And the key, because Jesus is telling us why we're not getting certain things. He's telling us right here why we're not getting certain things. All right, keep going.
Immediately the father shouted, "I do believe. Help me to believe more." Jesus saw that all the people were running there to see what was happening. So he spoke to the evil spirit. He said, "You evil spirit that makes this boy deaf and stop him from talking, I command you to come out of him and never enter him again."
Yes,
the evil
God.
spirit screamed. It caused the boy to fall on the ground again, and then it came out. The boy looked as if he was dead. Many people said, "He is dead." But Jesus took hold of his hand and helped him stand. Then Jesus went into the house. His followers were alone with him there. They said, "Why weren't we able to force that evil spirit out?" Jesus answered, "That kind of spirit can be forced out only with prayer."
Okay, very good. And in Matthew's version, it says prayer and fasting. Real quick before we leave the word, I just want somebody real quick to read, and it can still be you if you want, but Mark chapter 6 real quick. And I just want someone, because this is now, see, we just came from Mark 9, right? So now we're moving backwards to Mark 6. So what you need to understand about the story, or about the way that the gospel writers write their gospel. Hey, what's going on, bro? Is that it's not necessarily in chronological order in the sense of they have all of their events at the same time, but it's in chronological order as far as how the writer could remember it. Does that make sense? So there may be differences in terms of where Matthew puts an event or where Mark puts an event, but when they're writing it in their minds, the story is progressing. You get what I'm saying? This is just basic reading comprehension. Because some people,
Where are we?
Mark.
My new favorite book of the Bible.
It's a dope book.
It's a beautiful narrative.
Yes. Thank you for saying that, though, because that's what people miss. It's a narrative. It truly is a story. So we like to pull the stuff out of it, which I think we should do.
It's important,
But yeah, you got to catch the story. It's a good story. Thank you. See, this is the perfect day for you to be here. So we're leaving Mark 9. We're going to Mark 6. And I just want to read this one verse, because there's one verse in Mark 6. Mark. Sorry, did I say Matthew? I meant Mark.
Mark.
Yeah. So yeah, we're leaving Mark 9. We're going to Mark 6.
Okay.
And we're going to read verse 7. Just that one verse. Because this makes Mark 9 makes more sense.
Okay.
So anyone can read it.
And he called the 12 and began to send them out 2 by 2 and gave them authority over the unclean spirits.
So that's the point. So when you read here in Mark 6, he gave them authority over the unclean spirit. So when you get to Mark 9 and they're saying, "Why couldn't we cast this one out?" It wasn't a random question. It was, you gave us authority to cast out the unclean spirit, and we couldn't cast this one out. And I think sometimes if we are, and I know I'm talking to a mixed crowd, right? Because everybody's not a believer. Some are believers, some aren't believers, right? There's a mixed crowd, right? But for those of us who are believers, yeah, we're on Facebook Live, yeah. I know here, I'm not, my bad. yeah. But even in a religious or a spiritual context like this, a lot of people, they don't believe. They've been taught, they know, right? They've heard, but they don't believe. Knowing is not the same as believing. You can know something and still not necessarily believe in it. I know a lot of things. We all know certain things, but we don't necessarily believe in it. And when we move into belief, you cannot have belief without some form of action. Anytime you say you believe something, but you don't act on that belief, is not really in the realm of belief. I know some people separate belief and faith with those words. Like belief, you can just believe it, but faith is moving in your belief. And I do subscribe to that. But what Jesus here is dealing with is not because, okay, so let's talk about the story, then I'll break it down more, right? So in the story, the guy had a son who was demon possessed for a long time. Now, mind you, it's not like he just caught this spirit. Since he was young. And I find it interesting that we could see an issue and ignore it for a while. Can I just, I don't know if it was my kid and my kid was doing that the first time he convulsed and did that, I would have been like, whoa, wait a minute. And I'm not saying the Bible doesn't say he didn't do nothing about it since he was young, so I don't want to assume that. But it's been a while that this child's been going through this thing.
He could be grown.
Who the child?
It says boy.
Yeah.
I was going to say it says son at first. I'm like, how old is this kid?
Right. No, it's a boy. But since he was a boy, since he was a little boy, he's been going through this thing where he would go through these episodes, and the father knew that it was a demon possession. Now, we can argue about whatever they thought about psychological, whatever, but that's not the point, right? That's not really the point. The point is, he's going through this thing. He hears about this Jesus. I'm coming from the father. Father hears about this Jesus who has performed miracles. He hears about the disciples of Jesus who are also performing miracles. Because we didn't read it, but we read the verse where he said he gave them authority over unclean spirits. If we was to keep reading, they performed miracles. They cast out spirits, and they was excited about it. They went back to Jesus like, yo, it's crazy the stuff that we can do, right? So he's been hearing this. He gets there, and he's like, hey, I need you to help my boy. And they don't do anything. They can't. Not that they don't. They cannot do anything to help this boy. Say that word again. They attempt. They tried. But they failed. Why did they fail? But why didn't they believe? Because for us, right, we're reading it and we got to meditate to kind of find God in the spirit, right? But they in front of Jesus in the flesh. Like they saw what we're reading about, right?
But that's no different from all the other times that God has literally pulled us out of everything, supplied everything.
Yep.
That is right in front of our faces as well.
Correct.
And Jesus says that you didn't believe the prophets.
Right.
So if you didn't believe the prophets, it makes you think that you're going to believe me.
Right.
It is what it is.
So what stops us from believing? Go ahead.
I mean, well, in this context, when they asked, he said, this kind cannot be driven out by anything but prayer and fasting for the knowledge.
Right. So break it down.
So there is a belief that comes from even denying yourself,
right?
With the fasting and then focusing, whatever you call that, prayer, meditation, whatever it might be.
Right.
That builds your faith.
And authority.
Yeah. I also think it's interesting that he causes the spirit, which I never realized till now, he called him mute and deaf spirit.
Yes.
Nobody said the boy was deaf.
Right.
Nobody said he was mute.
Mm-hmm. Really? Yeah, he can't hear. Well, we don't know if he couldn't hear or if he could only not hear when the spirit got on him. Because he said this spirit makes him mute and deaf.
He didn't say deaf.
Not before.
He only, only says he
the father only said he's mute. I got you.
Spirit, mute and deaf spirit.
Got it. I got you. That's deep. Yeah. So Jesus was calling out things that the father didn't even recognize.
Saw that this time. I was like,
Yeah. So that's good. That's good.
Never mind. Answer.
So I want us to deal with it because if we make this, I want to make this as practical as possible. Because the reality is, The reality is they had authority. The authority was given to them. But their ability to exercise their authority was based on their ability to cultivate their authority. In other words, this word cultivate meaning to prepare for use. And a lot of times God will give you something, but you never cultivated it. And something in our mind says, because it's given to me, it's automatically ready for use. And the thing is, if you don't build it, if you don't work it, if you don't, so Jesus teaches them how to work this authority. And when he says prayer, and then in fasting in some cases, what Jesus is saying is you don't work this authority by constantly exercising it on other people. There's some things you cultivate within yourself.
Mercy.
So I'll say, I remember reading, I think it may have been in Mark, of course, that in the synagogues, the people spoke about Christ as speaking with authority.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike the scribes.
Unlike the scribes, yeah.
Who hadn't cultivated the word that they had learned.
Correct.
From as well.
Correct.
So they had to cultivate the word that he given them, the disciples. But they had it. Like Christ had all those years up until 30 or whatever it was. He had learned and cultivated and worked himself to be able to then speak with authority. And if you notice, a lot of people, who's this dude talking like he's something real? Right. You know?
Because he spoke from a different authority.
Right.
Because people think they have authority because they have titles.
That's it.
So they think a title, and I know. Look, I know. I got some people that cops and they follow me. I'm sorry, right, for those police officers about to get offended because you about to get mad right now. But they think that they know that there is an authority that comes with that uniform.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they act like someone who only has authority with the uniform, and you could tell those people who don't have a greater authority because that uniform changes them. When the uniform's on, they become somebody. When their uniform's off, you would never know they're a cop. Right? There's people who, but I mean, I don't want to judge them too much because there's people who are like that in the church. There's people who are like that in the house. There are times where there are two types of authority. One that is I can't think of the word. I can't even think of the word. But there's one where it's like it's real authority comes from within. Then there's another authority. Yes, intrinsic authority. Then there's the one that's given to you. I forget that word. It's like I had it and I lost it. Sorry, guys. This is live for real, right?
Is it? Okay, I don't know.
So a lot of people think if I can just so there's a lot of people who want to be pastors, right? Because they think if I become a pastor, then I have spiritual authority. And then what happens is they become a pastor and they have no spiritual authority because what God is dealing with is not something that you can get ordained for by man. Like what God is trying to do, it's not a certificate. It's not a diploma. It's not a uniform. Like God is doing something from within, and that's what makes Jesus so deep. But when it comes to our real life, part of our issues is when we come against certain spirits, when we come against certain forces, a lot of times we want to throw our title or our category or whatever it is at them and think that that's supposed to do something to them. When in reality, if you haven't been cultivating that authority within you, when that spirit comes, you're not even going to be prepared. And what's so bad is that if you got some victory in the past, you tend to slow down in your cultivation because all of a sudden you think you've arrived to some special place because you started getting victory. And it takes a demon stronger than you to remind you, I got to keep pressing in this. You don't got to raise your hand.
Yeah, right.
You know that's my thing.
I know.
So, this is a question. Because I just need clarity. If this cultivating means, like, say there's a thing that I'm trying to fight off on, like addiction, whatever it is, just whatever that thing may be, and I'm consistent in prayer, and I am consistent in believing, like, God, I know you can do this. There are even times where you're just like, I know you got the power to do anything, so make this, believing that because you've seen him work miracles in other places in your life and you're consistent, it is not something that you ignore. It is not something that you put down. It is something that you're continually, is addressing the issue with God still considered cultivating it, your authority? Like,
break that. Yes,
So,
I think I got you, but I want to be sure I understand you.
Okay, so you're saying the authority,
yes,
believing in the power and believing in what Christ can do and what he can do through us. So addressing it, saying that I believe that I can be unbound from this addiction or whatever the case may be. I know that you can do it. I know that you are able. I will no longer be bound by this thing and continually like not letting it drop, not and just continually addressing it in faith and just saying, I know this is happening and praying about it.
Is that cultivating?
Considered cultivating?
Yeah, I'd say that's one way, but we can talk about it.
Yeah, I also think certain levels require different things. And I think that's the beauty of authority. I was just talking to someone at my church about it, and they were, this particular person was talking to me, and it was like, you have to get under some like really strong authority for this next level that you're going to. Because certain levels like just require different things. Yeah,
new level, new devil.
When you're as crazy as that sounds,
no, it's real.
When you're talking about armies and you have different rankings, there are different requirements. Yeah. And even when my friend, she was promoted to a general at one point, and all of a sudden in one day she could no longer hang out with everyone she used to. Yeah. Because the army didn't allow it. Yeah. Like, and now you cannot fraternize. It's like y'all can't come over, y'all can't like. It's just so now it's like, well, I have to learn how to make friends here on this level.
On this level,
And there are different paperwork you have to go through, different that.
And different clearances.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the same, which is one of the reasons why I love when we compare certain things to the Army, but for different levels, the same thing isn't going to work. And so that's the thing as we pray to figure out, okay, God, what is it for this? It's like, recently I wrote about, I had some ants in my house, and there was something that we usually got to kill ants. Nothing was working. And I had to look it up, and they were like, it's a different species. You have to find the species of ant to attract it. So I had to go to Amazon to buy something that would bring them all out. And there was hundreds of them came out within 2 or 3 hours. They were like, don't kill them. You have to let them live because somebody's going to take it to the queen. Sure. But it just taught me a lesson. Like, I thought,
that's deep.
I thought I've used this before. I've been in battle with you. I won this way. Here's the bait. You take it. They're like, no. We're a different type.
Yeah, that's right.
And so when reading this passage now, the apostles, it was almost a lesson. Sometimes the shift in what used to work, not working anymore, is God actually showing you you're graduating to another level.
That's right. That's right.
Because they're meeting a new demon now, so they're learning new things, and then Jesus takes them away to go teach them after this. And so, it really depends on the level of cultivation. That's why it's like this time, y'all thought y'all could lay hands. Yeah. But I'm taking you to a new level where you need to pray and fast. Yeah. Yeah. You thought you could do this, and now that's why certain shifts we feel like, I feel like I need to eat different right now. Right. Season. I feel like I need to
stop listening to this. I need to start listening to that. Yeah.
Your authority has changed. You just can't do what you used to do.
Absolutely. What are you gonna say something to?
I also, to add to that, to shift it a bit, that was really good actually, by the way. I love that.
But no disrespect now. Inside joke, y'all, my bad. But I was cause I see what I've seen this before.
Cultivation, to me, particularly when it comes to addiction and ridding yourself of that kind of thing, as you're describing it, I'm going to address this issue. That's something that's bad, that's wrong, I want to avoid that. That sounded to me like the parable that Jesus speaks to of cleaning the house. That's wrong. Take it out. It's gone. It's gone. That's not there anymore. That's not there anymore. I don't do that anymore. Nope, not anymore. Not anymore. Not anymore. Not anymore. What's happening here? Yeah. Right. So yes, address that issue, but then what are you also
putting in?
What are we using for? Cultivating and coming back to work on to work differently in
within you
to find authority.
Right.
Within yourself, different than just letting go of and
absolutely
letting go of. That's cool. It's gone. Right. But now what?
Right.
Does that make sense?
No, perfect sense. Perfect sense.
You gotta take out the weeds, but the plant still needs water.
Yeah. Right. And there needs to be plants there. Like it's one thing, you got rid of all the weeds, okay, right? But there should be something here. It shouldn't be completely empty.
So I mean, okay, so which throws out another question. You know how you were saying with that? I mean, because there's several different scenarios in my head.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You know, it's not just
Different
this
things.
one. That's just the one I'm breaking up. Because even with the cultivating, I'm thinking about, you know, breaking generational curses. I'm thinking of different scenarios. I'm just trying to get like an understanding of.
So let's break it down a little bit.
Okay.
So when you deal with cultivation, what we're dealing with is the preparation before it's used.
Training.
Yeah, you see what I mean?
Okay.
Before it's used. So a lot of times when we deal with spirituality, or from what I've been hearing, it's always a response to what's happening, a reaction. This is happening, so let me attack this, and that's happening, so let me attack that, and that's happening. So it's always like, it's like we wait till something happens. And what Jesus is trying to raise us up to is cultivate yourself before something happens. So you're prepared for when it happens. So the issue, especially with this particular demon, when you read the story carefully, this was not your ordinary spirit. And what I like is that this is in Mark. I like that this is in Mark. Because when you read Mark, it's like Jesus speaks and immediately stuff happens.
They word is often
Immediately. It's like something, I know, because you know my doorbell don't work in my house. So I'm still trying to get used to that. I be forgetting, you don't know what's doing this? So I love the fact that this is in Mark, because with Mark, you know, he says immediately, "What up, y'all? How y'all doing? How y'all doing? You see me, right? Yeah, go ahead, take a seat. Hey, you made it. What up? Sorry, Facebook, you know, this is live for real. This is live for real. You guys came in at a great time. Yeah. Sean, you can put that chair right here for my boy Ant. You can sit right here. So yeah.
Everybody's recording. Hey y'all.
Yeah. This is Ant, by the way. Everybody, this is Pastor Anthony Adam. What up? Anointed. Yeah. So we're dealing with cultivating your authority. So you came at a good point. We'll probably recap when the camera goes off for the sake of, you know, the Facebook audience. But yeah. So in this text, you're not dealing with a regular demon, right? Because when Mark speaks, he says immediately over and over again. We're coming from Mark chapter 9, by the way, for those of you who want to follow. Yeah. So he said immediately, like all the time, immediately. Jesus was something. What happened? Jesus would do something immediately, like always on the spot. But with this one, if you read the story, Jesus speaks to the spirit, and the spirit keeps acting up.
Matter of fact, he gets closer. The spirit recognizes him.
Yeah, the spirit recognizes him, act up, and then Jesus says, "You mute and deaf spirit, I cast you out, never to enter again." And the story says he started convulsing and doing all of this stuff. It wasn't immediate. This was an intimidating spirit. And what I realize is if you're not rooted, if you're not cultivated within, if you're not rooted, there are some spirits that will literally intimidate you. And the thing about authority is when everybody's in line with your authority, then it's easy to exercise your authority, right? When you walk in and you know what I mean, this is my house and everybody listens to you, you go into a classroom and they know you're the teacher, so they all listening to you. You know what I mean? It's easy. But when that person bucks back at you, at that point, you either have the authority or you don't. Because a lot of times when they start challenging your authority, that's when you realize, or that's when they realize you don't really know the authority you have. See, right? Because as a teacher, you have authority over your classroom. That's a fact. But if you're intimidated by the students, you can't exercise the authority that was actually given to you. And here's the reality, right? Because this is really the kicker, right? God has given all of us authority over unclean spirits. That's a human right. When we were created to have dominion over everything. Like we were, or we are, I should say, the gods of this earth. There was nothing else. When after everything that was created on earth was created for us. The Bible even says that these angels that we love to call on, they're ministering for us. They're looking to serve us. Go ahead.
Break it down and roll back, though. Let's rewind, because when you say that we are gods here on earth,
Yes.
Somebody out there may not know what that means. So
If you don't know what that means, you need to go watch the video that says you are gods, right? We did a whole video on you being gods. But no, I'll break it down for real. I'll break it down. Because I know, right, we did talk about it. We did talk about it. But I'll break it down for the sake of clarity. Because, some people, they may never watch another video. They may be like, oh, he's tripping, right? Turn out. but
Moses, I will make you a god.
No, he did. Because what we don't understand about okay, because there's a lot, right? So when I use the word God, and even when the scripture uses the word God, there's a lot of different contexts. Even God says that he's the King of kings, the Lord of lords, the God of gods. Like the Almighty, we call him God in recognition that there's no higher authority than him. But anything that you are the highest authority of, you are the God of that realm. So we are the gods of this earth, gods and goddesses of this earth, right? But if you don't know that, then you'll act like another mere creation. And that's what's happening. We're not exercising our authority because we haven't cultivated our authority. We haven't worked on it to now exercise it. So when something comes up, when something comes up and it's intimidating, we back down. And what Jesus is saying, why do you still not believe? That's why he said this. Like, I don't understand that. You have it, but you don't believe it because you haven't been cultivating, which is why he says this type only happens. There are things you have to do within yourself before you can attack certain forces. Go ahead.
Okay. You know how you were saying we are, gods over our dominions and so on and so forth.
Right.
You know how in any royal family, children are brought up to prepare, to prep, to take head of household after parents move on, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
I know we're in this narrative, it is to prep, to bind out.
Mm-hmm.
But what is the cultivation, what is the preparation process, the cultivating process within the home to bring children up within?
Now that you actually ask a very specific question.
Yeah.
But I want to broaden your question to ask, what does cultivating your authority look like, right? Because I think that we can get specific. I don't mind answering that. I might answer that off camera, though, to be honest, because it's very specific, right?
My mom did it with me.
Yeah.
So I can definitely.
Yeah.
Very simply, like she did some things.
But I think if we don't know how to cultivate our authority in general, right? Because it's a principle. Like even before. Okay, when I was teaching at Oakwood Academy, right? I was teaching at Oakwood Academy, and he's one of my students, right? He can vouch. Did I have any problem with any student? Did any student ever challenge me? Now, these students, they will challenge you. They're not bad. Right? They're not bad students. So funny. But they will challenge. The stuff that they will do with other teachers, I'd be like, wow.
Listen.
And so when I would talk to other teachers, they would talk about the student. When I have those same students, I'm like, nah, it ain't them. It's not dumb, right? And that's not on a bragging thing. It's a different type of energy. It's something different when I walk into the room. It's a different level of respect, a different level of authority. But there's stuff that I do that the students don't see me do. There's something that is like something you bring with you that forces respect. Like it demands it. And it's not like just me. When I was growing up, there were certain things you didn't do at grandma's house. It's like, man, you be gang bang, you be da-da-da. Grandma walk in, you tucking everything back. You just sitting. You know what I mean? Like grandma couldn't do nothing to me. Like there's nothing physically that grandma could do to me. Like she can't, like she don't got those hands like that, right? But something in me is like, I gotta, you know what I mean? I gotta respect grandma. There's an authority that she brought with her. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, can you ask the question again? Because I lost track of what the question was.
How can we cultivate it?
Yeah. What is the preparation process?
Yeah, like what does it look like?
What does it look like?
Okay.
Within the home.
All right, so real quick, let me just share with you. My wife and my daughter, they left me. We didn't go get on that because I feel a little salty about that.
But you mean like temporarily? Though,
temporarily,
okay.
yeah. Vacation stay.
All right, because you can't just walk in there. Right?
We're good.
I'm about to say, should I pause this?
We had to clarify that.
Pause? You know what I mean?
They left me in this season for a couple hours.
Right.
So in that, I haven't been doing a whole lot of. I'm a jokester. I like to laugh and play and cut jokes. Anybody that knows me, but the doctor diagnosed my daughter and wanted to say that she had bipolar disorder. And then they went a step further and said that she had schizophrenia. And these are things that we have not shared. Thank you, Jesus. These are things that we have not shared because of the stigma that goes on. And we talked about that when we were together last time. But as you talk about children, you talk about authority. I was crying out to God, telling him that as a father, my authority for my daughter, I felt so helpless. Because there were things that I could monetarily pay and take care of situations for. I can roll up to the school, put somebody in a headlock. We good. But now when you're talking about a spiritual and a mental thing that's going on, God is beyond my control. But you said that I had authority and dominion over this thing. And so as I was praying, God actually took me back to the story of the wheat and the tare. And how the wheat and the tare are growing together. The difference between a farmer, he understands what wheat looks like and he understands what tare looks like. But Christians in this day and age are chopping them both, processing them together, and our children aren't getting the nutrients that actually come from the wheat. We as Christians aren't getting it. And so how can you have authority when you can't recognize or hear the sound of God that grants you the authority, or see the hand of God when it moves?
No, that's a good question. So I guess we'll take it to the family. Go ahead.
And just
we're gonna have to go there. Yeah, we're gonna have to go there.
I can say I'll start with my mom and I'll say the principle. So very early on, as a young kid, I would have dreams, and she noticed very early that I have dreams that would come true. And so her knowing that, and I had the benefit of watching her raise my brother, who's a teenager.
What does it mean?
So I was like a teenager when he was born. You know what I mean? And so I got to see what it looks like. But so she was very prayerful about, okay, well, what does this mean? My child's a dreamer. You know, God shows her things that come beforehand. What are some of the issues she would have? And then there were times I was spiritually sensitive. So as a kid, in the bed at night, I could hear things enter a room, and I would be tormented. Like,
yes, Lord,
what is going on? And so the movies, the scary movies, I don't watch that because I know when they show somebody like being sucked to the bed and it feels like they're being pulled in, it's because I know what they were trying to. I know that feeling, so I know what they were trying to emulate. Because you're like, I can't, and I could hear laughter, like all of that. And I remember one time, one time in particular, my mom had gone through it. They had moved in a house in North Carolina at one point. My dad surprised my mom when they first got married and said, I bought you a house that she had never seen. Walked up and it was owned by witches prior. And there were holes in the wall. The lights were all like different colors and different things and stuff. And so it was crazy because even like verses or pictures she would have, you know, quote unquote Jesus, she'd be praying and it would fly across the room. All of that hit the wall. BAM! Stuff would just break. Yeah, so she had been through this stuff. So I remember one night when I was like feeling like super tormented and I finally got something out. And I was like, ah! You know, I was like 7. She ran in the room. She's like, come in here, come in my room. She prayed. She said, okay, so I'm going to leave. And I was like, what?
Did you hear me?
She was like, I'm leaving. And the next time this happens, you pray. And you call on Jesus. I'm not coming back.
Good night.
And she let me be in her room.
Yeah, okay, got you.
And she was like, you have this. And I remember feeling like,
wow.
But I will never forget that night because when she left, I was like, it's on me.
Yeah. She's giving you the authority.
She had shown me like I did it. The next time, this is what you do.
Yes.
So she would do things like that, or I have dreams, and she'd be like, you know, did you dream anything? Write it down. So she would always make me write down, go back and see, you know, pay attention to these things. But of course, prayer, fasting. She held me responsible at a very young age because she saw I was gifted at a young age. Right. So she didn't wait.
She had to cultivate.
Even talking to people, she'd be like, you are supposed, like if I talk to somebody, I'm like, yeah, she'd be like, why do you talk to them with your arms folded? And I was like a little kid. I'm like, because I was cool. I don't care. You look like you didn't care. Yeah. Like she was like
I don't
that.
think you look, you didn't care.
Yeah. So she was like, you need to look like you care about people when you speak to them because this is how we show love. This is how we. But she saw, because God was showing her what type of child she had, what she needed. But her preparation was cultivating gifts in me so that I would not need her. Yeah. Not that I wouldn't need her.
Right.
But it was like, but that's the key though. She empowered me to be like, this is your responsibility though. Yeah. This is not mine.
And growing up in the Pentecostal church, that always happened. You know what I'm saying? That always happened because they believed in casting demons out. Right. Whereas other churches did not talk about it. But it's amazing how you pick up on it, and you said that your mother gave you the authority. She empowered you to be able to deal with this, because now when my daughter sees things, what we've started doing is saying, what was it?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that thing. And now, let me tell you the name.
Yes.
Come on, that name that has power, that no demon can stand in the midst of.
And that's what we're dealing with. I want to define authority real quick, because someone was asking on Facebook, what is authority? And we didn't define it.
Good.
But authority, is technically it's another word for power. But when you use the word authority in a very legalistic, technical sense, you're dealing with jurisdiction.
That's good.
When you use the word authority, you're dealing with jurisdiction. Dominion. So dominion. In other words, if I use the police force, for example, if you're Huntsville police in Alabama, you can't go to Birmingham and exercise that same authority because you're out of your jurisdiction, right? So that's what we mean by authority. So when we're dealing with authority, it is having the ability, because the word power is the ability to make moves and change. That's what power is. When something has power, it has the ability to move or change.
You had
That's
the
what
power
power
to
is.
hurt your grandma.
You know what I mean? You said what?
You had the power to overtake her.
Yeah, in a physical sense, I did, right? But I didn't have the authority. I didn't have the authority, right? So literally in the scriptures, there's two different words when they're using power versus authority. So depending on but we won't go that deep. So what Jesus is saying is you have the authority or the power, the jurisdiction over these unclean spirits. So what Jesus is saying is your dominion is not necessarily just territorial, but you have, so in other words, for a lack of a better term, I have authority over my children. Whether we're here or whether we're there, what I say is the final word over my children. That's what it's supposed to be like with unclean spirits, where there's no reason for an unclean spirit to feel comfortable in your presence. The only way that an unclean spirit should be able to rest is if you gave it permission to. And that's a whole other conversation, right? But if you didn't give that unclean spirit permission to rest, then that spirit has to go. So just like an unruly child, or just like an unruly student, just like an unruly anything, they may not just get up and go. So at that time, you have to exercise your authority, because you always have it. See, nothing can take your authority away. You could just choose to not use it.
That's good. That's good.
Nothing, no one has the power or the jurisdiction to snatch away your authority. That's why you're always a child of God no matter what. That's why, you always have your rank. You always have your authority. It's just one day maybe you'll act like it. Maybe you'll act like who you are. You know?
So when Jesus said to the disciples,
I hope I answered your question.
He said, y'all stay here. I'm paraphrasing now. Y'all stay here and y'all wait, because there's somebody that's coming that's greater than me.
Yeah.
And so what he did was he endowed them with power to be able to then go with that authority. So now you said that you have jurisdiction over your children.
Yes.
Whether you're here or whether y'all are somewhere else, you got jurisdiction over them. You got authority over them.
Yes.
But what about that word when Jesus says, now go? Because that now is sending you with power. That power never leaves you.
That's right.
But some people think that they can only have that power when they're connected to the church as the building itself.
But that's the problem.
That is the problem. Yeah,
I mean, but that's what we have to break.
That's just knowledge. I think what you even said, and going back to your question, it's knowing what you have authority over.
Yes.
Because even if you don't know your jurisdiction,
yes. Come on, Sean.
Either you'll go beyond the bounds,
Prophetess,
or you're supposed to be taking authority.
Yes.
Attorney Sharona. Yes, sir.
And you're not. You get what I'm saying? Because it's like, when I hear this story, people be like, well, even with your daughter, I think about that. And so some people are like, well, you can't cast out that's a mental thing. This is a spiritual thing. This is that. But if you understand your jurisdiction is both physical and spiritual. And really, the physical is the lowest form.
Right?
You know what I mean? Yeah, so then you have people who are like, well, no, it really is because, the synapses are doing this and the frontal lobe is and this happens, so we don't have authority over that.
And we need that knowledge.
Yeah, and that's great.
That's great.
Because we need, really what we need is to know exactly what we're praying for.
Exactly.
If you're calling out the wrong thing, that's why it's dope that Jesus, the Father says, my child is mute.
Yes.
Has a mute spirit. Jesus says you mute and deaf spirit come out.
Yeah.
No one said the child was deaf.
Right.
He understood
Yeah.
the inside of the thing.
Yeah.
And so it's like knowing exactly what it is helps us, and knowing where our authority is and understanding authority, or understanding like, okay, you're calling this spirit lust. It's not lust. It's a spirit of rejection.
Right.
So you can call out lust all day. The person doesn't have a problem with lust. Which is why
they still doing all the
it's
things that look like it.
The thing is, I'm gonna call out this rejection, this mommy wound, this daddy wound, this like you were adopted and you're still hurting over that. You know what I mean? It's really that you're suicidal and you're looking for someone to love you in a moment. You don't even like this.
Right.
And so like that's the knowing our authority and then knowing the jurisdiction that we're in is very important, because some things isn't that we haven't lost power. It's just we don't even know what we fight. We bring the knife to a gunfight. Right.
And this is why, and I'm going to answer this question. This is a really good question too, but this is why when Jesus deals with the disciples, he doesn't say you laid the wrong hand, or you didn't say the right words. He said this comes through prayer. In fact, so it's the private things that we tend to reject. You guys can also chime in. Don't feel like I'm just saying, get this discussion, but yeah, it's more of the private things. And sometimes, especially when your back is against the wall, kind of foreshadowing the next question, or when you feel threatened or attacked, is hard to find that center. And I don't know if it's because, I'm a street dude, you know what I'm saying? I kind of look at people a different way. No, I claim it. Some of y'all know what my set is, you know what I mean? I throw it up right now. but y'all all get distracted, and I end up on Shade Room somehow. You know what I'm saying? But it's a matter of when you know who you are, and whose you are. When you know what you can do, then certain things don't bother you. Like I'll give you a real life scenario. It's not the most safe scenario, but it's a real life scenario anyway. So me, and then I'm gonna answer your question. Well, I'm gonna answer your question. Make sure I deal with this question, and don't log off before we deal with your question. So I was at a party. Me and the wife, we were dating at the time, and we weren't vibing. You knew it was that way because that joke was real. That joke was so real. So we weren't vibing. I don't even remember why. I think she thought something, whatever. But she was tripping. I was tripping, but she was tripping. And we was at a party, and so we weren't vibing. So I was like, we weren't together. You know what I mean? We were both there, but we weren't together. She was like doing her thing, and I was just on the side. So the dude thought it was cool to press. So I saw him walk up to her, and I didn't do nothing. I'm going to fall back because I'm going to be real. I'm very cocky like that. I feel like if you can take her, take her. But I promise you can't. Yeah, you can't take her. So, but we weren't vibing, so I didn't know what was going to happen. I'm watching. I'm like, let's see what happened. You know what I mean? Is she still mine? So dude pressed her, and then she was like, she rejected dude. And then, she kept doing her thing. He pressed her again. And then she rejected dude again. So he came a third time, and this time I stepped in. That's right. I was like, dude, she not feeling you, just fall back. Yeah. So he started talking all. He said, it wasn't that clean, clearly. I'm cleaning it up.
Jesus version, the New International Version.
So he started, he started popping whoop-de-whoop, like started going, he's doing his thing, and his boy took him away. And I'm just there. So then at the end, no, he didn't pop off. He said, my bad, he stepped off. Then at the end of the party when we leaving, he tries to step up to her again. I'm like, so do we have a problem? Like now it's about to be some hands. Like you about to really, so we going at it, but we didn't fight. His dude pulled him off to the side. But my dudes was like right there, right? And a bunch of other people, right? So he works, his friend, he works.
No, they all work.
Yeah, we all worked in the same spot. So he came through, he was like, yo, you're lucky my boy came and pulled me off because your man was about to, catch it. And his dude was like, nah, I stopped you because the whole football team was there, plus his other dudes was there, and we wasn't going to win that fight. Like, that wasn't going to be us, and I didn't want that. And the thing was, I was calm. I was ready to give him hands, but I was calm because I knew the backup that I had. Didn't matter how much he like bucked. Didn't matter all the threats. Oh, I'm like, da-da-da-da. I'm like, not here. Not here. You got to catch me somewhere else. But not here. This is my jurisdiction. Right? So if you understand that on a spiritual level, when a demon, unclean force, whatever, when it shows up, it's like, you might really be that strong, but not here, because this is my jurisdiction. You got to go take that somewhere else. And that's the authority that we have. Go ahead. And I'm still answering your question. Don't go nowhere. Go ahead.
You said it earlier that sometimes that we are not strengthened, like when they were like, well, why weren't we able to cast out the demon? There are times when you are in a thing and when it pops back up or it comes back, you then begin to doubt.
Yes.
Because
Now you're getting
like,
it. Now you're getting it.
Hold up. I spoke to this thing. I believed it. But then sometimes when it pops back up stronger.
Yeah.
Because it said, like, you heard, was it Jesus spoke to it? And it was like, oh, and it attacked.
Yeah.
And slammed him to the floor and all this other stuff. So it's going to come, and sometimes it comes back bigger. So then you begin to doubt yourself.
Yes.
Am I even there with God in the first place?
I said what I said.
You know,
said.
and and like,
but that's how you
said,
That's what it is.
And that's what I'm saying. It's like when you said it, you were like in it, like you believe, like I know that this is going to be the end of this.
Yeah.
This is going to be dead. This is going to be finished. So when it pops back up, sometimes that doubt. I'm
that's
speaking
right.
personally for myself.
No, you're
like
speaking
when
truth.
it pops back up stronger. I'm over here like,
yep.
well, maybe I didn't do nothing.
Yeah.
Like maybe I didn't even address it for
right.
real. And so
and that doubt empowers the spirit.
And that's the thing.
But that's the thing.
That's
exactly
private time you talked about too.
Yes.
Cultivating. And not just the prayer, the fasting, and in the word, and just kind of being spiritually in tune. Because there are things you can see where you get foresight in the private time of the strategy.
Yes.
So like that's what prayer, meditation, fasting does, is it centers you to be able to connect with God and say, okay, what's the strategy here? Paul often said, I would not have you to be ignorant of the devices, like of the enemy, because there's a strategy. And so what happens is we're surprised.
Yes.
But many times, if we take that time, prayer, fasting, meditation, centering, God's usually like, okay, what is this? What does this particular spirit do?
Yeah.
This particular spirit acts up this type of way.
Yeah.
Da, 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 da. So then when it comes up bigger, it's like, I expected you to do that.
Right.
And
That's
this
how you
means
act.
I'm at the end.
Yeah.
And so now it's not a doubt, it's I know how you move.
Yeah. Preach.
So
that's
it's
right.
like,
That's right.
I'm expecting it. When we get close to the end, he gonna act up.
Yeah.
So
And that's
now
every spirit, by the way.
And so now I'm mentoring somebody.
It's
I'm like, hey,
every
you're doing really well. This is your calm. Know that it's going to get really, really big, really, really bad, really impossible with this particular type. Usually it comes to a family member or this here. That just from experience. Usually it comes here, or what's going to happen is your body's going to do this particular thing. Part of it is physical because this is what happens. Another part is spiritual. When that happens, wait. Usually about X amount of time. It might be 3 months for you, could be 3 weeks, just wait it out. Once that happens, you probably have moved past a new level of authority.
Yeah.
And once you have the knowledge, then when it comes, it's like, oh, okay, this is what you do.
Absolutely.
So I need to endure this amount of time.
Absolutely.
And that's what like the silence gives you strategy.
Yes.
That's what we're like, this is how you're moving.
Absolutely.
Go ahead and answer that question.
Yeah, well let me bring up this question because I think it's another question. It says, so what do you do when you can command authority in your home, but you're up against very strong spiritual forces, much stronger than you've ever faced, that are tormenting you at school/work? How do you cultivate your authority for that? So I want to take this time to kind of give some suggestions on how to cultivate your authority as a whole. Because ultimately what we're dealing with is who you are and when you are that, if that makes sense. For example, if I could, I'll do an unsaved version. I'll do a saved version, right? Because there's some married men. Because there's some married men who are only married at home.
That's right.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
y'all want to hear that gospel?
It's 100. So they're married men at home. When they're not home, it's like all of a sudden.
Hey, bro, he talking about you.
They said, right, that's what he's doing right now. Like, did you talk to Pastor? What's going on? Yeah. You know, and there's some people who are only children of God in the choir. You know, they're only children of God in the sanctuary. They're only children of God, you know, when they're around other Christians or whatever the case is. So you have to, when we're dealing with cultivating your authority, you have to know who you are and who you are when you are, like when you are who you are. Because the reality is, you are, whether you see it or not, you are the child of God. You are a child of God all the time, 24/7.
Yeah.
There is not a moment where you are not a child of God.
It's all my home.
And in the moments where you doubt, this is how you cultivate. This is how you cultivate. In the moments where you doubt that you are a child of God, that is the time where you should affirm with your mouth that I am a child of God.
That was an answer to a question I've had in my head. So.
Because a lot of times, this generation, and I don't want to sound like old and judgmental, but I got to speak what I see, right? But this generation is so focused on looking for a new thing that they miss the thing with substance. It's like, I want the new thing. Well, you may need to just say you're a child of God. You may not need other words. You may need to like say that in the mirror. Like you want another fancy way. That you may just need to look in, because what happens, and I want to help somebody. What happens is,
You don't want to pass. Is there another way?
right, exactly. But that's exactly right. Do we gotta pray all night? You may have to. This isn't a post. This is all night. Right, 30 minutes. Ask your youth to pray for 30 minutes. They'll look at you crazy.
Oh yeah, too much.
You know, but I wanna help you here. I wanna help you because a lot of you don't believe. Like when I just said you're a child of God, some of you, when you heard that, all types of doubt welled up inside. Like you're a child of God, and this tingly feeling just came up on you, like nah, like you know, like you didn't even recognize that as doubt. Like when you hear it, right? You doubt it, and you didn't even recognize it as doubt, right? Like if someone says you're Abby's husband, I don't get no tingly feeling because I knew that's true. You know what I'm saying? It's true. So sometimes when it's time to affirm you, and I mean, there's scriptures that can let you know who you are, right? We could go over that, right? No, I'll have to get that to you separately because we'll be here all night. But, you know, you have to affirm. So I guess the first step in cultivating your authority is to know who you are. Because your authority comes from who you are, because who you are comes from who God is, and that's the highest authority. So when you know who you are, then you know the authority that you walk in.
Yeah.
You're a child of God.
Earth is the Lord and the fullness thereof. Everywhere I walk is my home.
Everywhere you walk.
That's it.
Everywhere, like all of heaven is your home. I mean, all of heaven and earth, to be honest, is your home. So it starts with affirming who you are. That means then, if you don't feel like you can exercise authority over an unclean spirit at your school, you may not recognize that you're a child of God at your school. At your school, you might think you become something else.
Mercy.
A student, a teacher, whatever that something else is, an administrator, and you left a child of God in the car. And you can't wait to leave the school to go back to being a child of God. But you're a child of God in the school. Like everywhere you go, that's where your authority stems from. You go to work, you run your business, you're a child of God at your business. It doesn't change. I'm not.
So what you're saying is being a child of God is circumstantial?
No, right? I know.
I feel like
It's not circumstantial. It's not
Like a
circumstantial.
shopping network.
It's not
So what you're saying
circumstantial.
is this cleans everything?
Right. So what you say? Wow, this is amazing. But no, but that is. It sounds so fundamental because it is. It sounds so elementary because it is.
That we talked about last
Yeah.
week. Identity, man.
But that is the key. When Jesus came, Jesus didn't come to turn you into something that you're not. He came to turn you into something that you are. Because you were never meant to be a sinner. You were never meant to be a child of Satan. Like that's not who you are. That was never God's intention. So Jesus says that's not. I didn't come to make you. Because if you try to be something that you're not, you're fake. And that fakeness will cause you to doubt your authority. Right? When you recognize this is actually who I am. Like that is. So you have to start there, and you have to do that at home. When I say at home, what I mean is by yourself privately, wherever you are, right?
It has to be cultivated.
Yeah, it has to be cultivated.
Before the battle.
Before the battle. Because you're trying to cast out a demon, and Jesus is like, no, who are you? Because that demon knows me.
You ever studied anything?
Right.
But you know, and even in
That's step one.
there's a difference between because a lot of times we're trying to convince ourselves that we are that, but we are that. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes,
like,
yes.
you don't have to convince yourself that you're your parents' child. That's like,
right.
That's not something you question, like,
well,
so are those your, let's
You looking at them pictures, huh?
You are not.
And so, and instead of convincing ourselves, that should be something that we know.
Yeah, and that's what takes time. Sometimes you have to convince yourself of that until you get it. And you do by yourself, but your community should also help you with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I was going to say that's really step 2. Step 1, because I believe in starting with self first. Because if you start with community first, you're going to be screwed, right? Because everybody's not always going to be there for you.
The wrong community.
Yeah, exactly. So you got to start with self first. You got to learn how to affirm yourself. But then when you are affirming yourself, because the truth is, I don't know if this is going to sound whatever, but when you're by yourself, you're not by yourself. Mm-hmm. Yeah. When you're by yourself, you're with the best company. It's just you and God, right? So you need that, where it's like, God, I am with you, and I'm getting an affirmation. Then you find a community that agrees with your affirmation, right? Because the issue is, especially when it comes with minors or children, is they're not able to choose their community necessarily. They can, but sometimes their household is a mess. I'm not going to act like everybody, like when they go home, sometimes that's when, like they have to cultivate it at school. When they get home, that's when the battle is really happening. This is a reality. Yep. So for them, you know, I understand the struggle. And if you're going through that, just hit me up, right? You don't got to go through that by yourself. This is your window. You needed a sign from the Lord to seek help. This is your sign, right? Sign, right? This is it, right? You know what I'm saying? But when I'm dealing with adults, what bothers me is when adults who now have the opportunity to choose a better community continue to be in toxic environments and then wonder why their life is toxic. Like, this is your chance. This is really find a community. Look, I am all down for, I'm married. Look, my wife, if I got nobody else, you know what I'm saying? I got my wife. That's a beautiful thing. But my point is, you need to find somebody else who can agree. And don't believe the lie when the devil says nobody's going to get you, nobody else understands, blah, blah, blah. A lot of times the Lord will tell you to go to places that you never even thought to go. And he's telling you to go at that time because the person that you need to connect with is there. So a lot of times the Lord will tell you need to go to Walmart. You'll be like, I don't need nothing for Walmart. Like, get up and go to Walmart. And you'll go there and it'll be like, yo, what am I doing here? And someone will ask you a question and y'all start talking, and that's the community that you need. You know what I mean? Like, so, and that's just one example. It happens all the time. I believe that I went to Oakwood at the right time, and et cetera, et cetera. Like, it gets deeper. We went to Outback one time and got prophesied over at Outback. You know what I mean? Like, stuff is like, it's crazy, the things that happen. But I promise you, when you are intentional in saying, God, I want to walk in who I am in you, and you're intentional in that, because that's where it starts. God has a way of directing you, and I would even go a step further. You start to attract those things that will affirm who you are. Yeah.
So there's a young lady.
We always get it at the same time.
There's a young lady that's watching. I just want to let you know. She's watching. She didn't say that she was going to be who she said she was. She's watching. Long story short, she's struggling with authority because she wants to know if committing suicide is a sin. She's on that brink of teetering between.
Well, I'll encourage her to not do it.
Yeah, of course. But as far as
get it to consider that, just don't do it.
Authority tonight. As far as authority is tonight, how would you speak to that person that is in that desperate place where they are right now?
Man, well, first I'll tell them not to do it. I mean, if you are watching, I don't know who you are, but if you are watching, I mean, we need to have a conversation. I would rather talk to her directly because it's too.
Well, she's talking to somebody as well, but
because this is like real life, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
If we don't give her a word from the Lord,
Real
you know what I'm saying? So I don't want to give her something generic.
Sure.
Like, certain things taste better when it's home. Right. Yeah, that's real. Because this is not. But I want to give general principles, but for those specific things, we can talk. She can always reach out to me.
Yeah, and I mean, because the thing is, to diagnose it.
Absolutely.
Prematurely, or based off of a symptom. One of the things that I love about that is for someone to ask, is this wrong? Yeah. Is hope in and of itself.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's the beautiful thing, that whatever this person is facing, that they can still see some hope.
Right.
That they're still submitted enough to ask the question.
Yes.
Like that's
and not
a
just do
beautiful
it. Yeah.
heart, first of all. That you would say, I'm going to pause, ask someone if this is okay. Like you already have so many principles down that you don't even realize. To say, okay, I'll pause right now, and I'm willing to submit to community. Yeah. Or I need help.
Yes.
Because the fact that you would say, I've been there. I remember. I still have my suicide letter from the 8th grade that I wrote, and I keep it for just a memorial to be like, man, I really felt like this at one time, and since this point, like I sometimes look at the letter and think about all the wonderful things that have happened since then. Like I've got to travel the world with like gospel artists. I've got to travel the world just on my own. I've got to the same situation that made me want to give up has now become the platform of so many beautiful things and mentoring over 200 young women on the west side of Chicago and walking with them through it. And knowing like, okay, this isn't this is because I know it. Because I can call it by its name. And tell you the pattern and walk with you through the path. So, but the fact that you are able to ask for help shows that you're a lot stronger than you think you are. Because most people deal with this alone. And there's so much shame. So first I would want to commend whoever that person is to be like, man, the fact that you would do that and then say, I'll even show up on the live to just hear what y'all got to say.
Hallelujah.
My encouragement to you is to be to notice your strength.
Yes.
Because years from now, that same strength,
you're
going to look back on and be like, yo,
yes.
I've always been resilient. I've been able to work with Tribe. I've been able to contact people and say, can y'all help me through this? And these things have gotten me to these levels that I never thought I could be at.
Absolutely.
And so I do think that the root of whatever it is should be discussed. Because I think to blanket it is one thing.
Right.
I think it's not an issue of, as much to me, is it a sin? Right. The thing is, even hearing this question, there's so much you have to live for because you've already planted so many seeds of greatness that I would love to see you live on to see what it looks like for you to see your own resilience. Yeah. For you to see your own ability to connect with community and go through things together and see how that changes the world.
Absolutely.
Because people aren't like you.
Right.
Like that's not a normal thing for people to do when they go through stuff. So I would definitely say reach out, but
and she's local. And she's local.
Like, yo, that's crazy that you even like, all right, I'll go to your little live.
No, that's real. No, if she's local, definitely connect us because that's the point of community. I read in a book.
That's what you were reading it
in a book.
In a book.
I read a book. I was about to shout out the title, and then I said they're not my sponsors.
So somebody might need help, but they're not gonna get it.
Oh no, you talk to me privately. We'll talk privately. You know what I mean? But if you have a book that you want advertised, hit me up and we can talk prices. I read in the book it said that community helps with belief. Yeah. So simple, right? Community helps with belief, and I think a lot of times we don't realize that even when you don't believe something, that's a belief. Like you believe something. And your community really will reinforce what you believe. So first, you have to believe it for yourself. But then second, connect with somebody. Connect with people who can help you cultivate those same belief systems that you have. Which by default means that you would disconnect with those people who go against. Thank you, sir. I got the mint in my mouth.
I got you
though. But that would also mean that you would have to disconnect with toxic people. And I know that's probably one of the hardest things because the people closest to you are sometimes the most toxic.
Man, family.
Family, so-called friends. And what I've also learned is that a lot of times your spirit would have warned you of that person before their actions confirmed it.
That's what that private time and that awareness helps with.
Right. Yeah. So you don't need a justification for separating from someone who's toxic in your life.
That's good.
They really don't even need to know why.
Explanation?
Yeah.
For your health.
Exactly.
And community helps, I think, to show you that there are other ways.
Right.
Because sometimes
Absolutely.
it's like, really what it is you don't, sometimes it's like, I don't see how this could work out any other way.
Yeah.
Well, what if it's my mom? I can't get away from her. Well, that's not altogether true.
That's not all.
And if you speak to somebody else, you might be able to
Yeah.
well, actually, you have a couple of options.
Right.
You
Go to
might not
college.
like some of them.
Right. Right.
How old are you? You can
Yeah.
actually emancipate. You can
Yeah.
do these things.
Yeah.
Like, there are things that we can do. You
Yeah.
know, if we
There are always options.
there are always other options. And some things, we say back home, some of us be like, you got to jump this demon. Like when you know you can't handle it on your own, it's like at your party, you
Come
can't
on.
beat me because I got my squad.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
like, yo,
Bring
it's
them on,
hard.
bring
So
them
we all
on.
got to jump.
Yeah.
You gotta,
You want to say something?
no, I say yeah. I'm listening.
Because that power of agreement is so important. And Jesus had Jesus was teaching us, you know what I mean, like where we can end up and surpass. Because he said, you're even going to do greater things than that.
Please.
You know what I mean? So Jesus, if you look at what Jesus did, he spent a lot of time in the mountains praying. He had that 40-day fast, but he spent a lot of times in the mountains. And he'll be praying, he'll be meditating, right?
Mountains.
But then watch this. At the Garden of Gethsemane, he told his disciples,
Yo, look out for
pray with me for an hour. Like, that's deep when you think about that. Like,
He had teenagers.
because they fell asleep.
They were. No, they were.
If they were old, they would have been like, yeah, we do it 2 hours. Yeah, you're right. But the fact that Jesus had a good balance in that alone time, but also knowing what to call in that community. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like something that I'm just making up just to make up. This is what Jesus did. Team Jesus. Oh, I don't have that shirt on today. I got a shirt. That say Team Jesus. I was gonna wear that, and right there, this is Batman. But
Is you a sponsor?
Right. You need to put
Batman. Batman sponsors me. How you think I got this keyboard? Y'all ain't paid for it. Nah, let me stop. But yeah, affirm yourself, and we could even break it down more. What do you do while you're by yourself? But I would rather, this is a fluid conversation. You know what I mean? What prayer looks like, what meditation looks like. We'd have to break that down. Cause my instant burnt up already, so my time technically is up. And if there's some of it, go ahead.
No, I
Answer
was
what you
about
want.
to say to be very careful in the cultivating process. That time alone is important. I do firmly believe in a community, but I have seen people rely on community versus alone time. So I think that's very, very important. Like it's good to have a community to support in the unified truth, but first and foremost, cultivate. Do that preparation with self first.
Yeah.
I agree.
And community confirms. Sometimes a long time can just make you crazy.
And that's why I believe in both. I do believe in starting with self first.
Yeah.
But the funny thing about idea, the funny thing about, because they're the idea, right? Start with yourself and then go to community. But sometimes it takes community for you to go to yourself.
Yeah.
So there's no, I can't say there's an order to it. I do think you need to find something within yourself, though.
Yeah.
That's so important.
Because it's really just you and God. I think
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
the key. Like cultivating your personal relationship before cultivating a relationship with God through other people.
Right. But sometimes you gotta cultivate your relationship with God through other people to even get you to where God is.
Yeah.
So it all depends on where you are. And I know it could be frustrating, right? Because I know we're used to getting, and I don't mean as a shot, but we're used to getting like definitive answers. But there's some things the Spirit just has to tell you. Like, yo, this is what you need to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I've been waiting on an answer for about 10 years.
Mercy.
And maybe it's because sometimes I don't want to hear the answer that he has to say.
Mm.
And I'm waiting on that answer to become what I think in my own mind it should be.
Mm-hmm.
But in brokenness, as we're talking about authority, I think that most times you have to be broken to be remade into what God would have you to be. And that's test and tried, and we don't want to do that anymore. We're so quick to just want that answer. So I get down on my knees for 5 minutes. God, you should be glad that I'm down here for 5 minutes. We have to change the way we perceive a holy God. We have to change the way that we receive a holy God.
Yeah.
So there's a certain time that is carved out in the day. I don't care what it is. There's a certain time that needs to be carved out. And you just have to say, God, this is me. This is all of me. And I'm never enough for me. I'm never enough for the people that are around me. But they said that in you I can be made perfect. So God, reveal unto me who I am. And I think in that intimate, truthful, vulnerable moment, a man doesn't have to worry about where his family's next meal is coming from.
Right.
He doesn't have to worry about whether his wife or his relationship is going to break up, because God of the universe, God of all, has now tuned into where you are. And all he says that if you'll come to me as a child, I'll be your daddy. Just be honest with you. And many of us, that's what we need. And I'm at that point now where when people break you and they break your heart and they break this, they break you to destroy you. But when God allows you to be broken, he breaks you so that his grace and his mercy can be performed in your life.
Amen.
But are we willing to receive it? So I believe that somewhere in life, we always make it at that point.
Well, everybody close their eyes real quick. I want you to reflect, meditate, go into that space where it's just you. I want you to ask yourself, who am I? Who am I? Now, I want you to ask yourself, who taught me that's who I am? Where did I get that identity from? And I want you to ask yourself, what authority comes with this identity? What authority comes with this identity? Ask yourself, how can I cultivate the authority that's within me? What can I do to cultivate that authority that's within me? Let's pray. Father God in heaven, I'm so grateful for the opportunity to have this conversation with my family. I'm just grateful, God, that we are your children. You are our God. You are our Father. You are our mother. You're where we come from. In that there is no way that we can be who we are without somehow reflecting who you are. Because the child always reflects the parents. So somewhere in our distorted view of who we are, for some of us, we may consider ourselves everything else but a child of you. But I'm so grateful, God, that at the end of the day, you are the Father. And if you are our Father, then indeed something about us will look like you and reflect will reflect you. And the more we learn of who you are, the more we learn of who we are. Because you are our Father. So as the enemy tries to convince us and distract us that we are less than, that we are nobodies, that we are accidents, that we're problems, that the world will be better without us, and all these lies, we can go back to the truth that you are our Father. And we know that because if it wasn't for you, we would not be here today. So we're just so grateful, God, that you haven't abandoned us, that you haven't left us. And not just that you haven't abandoned us, but that you have given us authority over any spirit that is not like you. Thank you, God. Hallelujah. You've given us authority over every unclean spirit, every demon. We can look that demon in the face and say, depart from here. Lord, help us to learn and to exercise that authority. Help us to learn to first cultivate that authority within us. Lord, all of us were getting a fresh word. All of us were getting different messages as to what that looks like. For some of us, you're telling us to wake up earlier. For some of us, you're telling us to read more scripture. For some of us, you're telling us to write more songs. For some of us, you're telling us to do different things, God. And I can't name them all, but we're hearing you right now, the different things that we can do to cultivate, to affirm who we are and the authority that comes in being your child. So Lord, I ask that if you give us the grace to reveal it to us, then give us the strength to walk it out. That we can do everything that you have asked of us to do. Not in a condemnation type way where if we don't do it, we'll burn in hell for all eternity. But in a way where we can understand that you're asking us to do it because it's for our good. And it's to bring us to those levels that are destined for us. I'm so glad there's a destiny. A level that is destined and that you're bringing us higher to a destination. It's not random elevation, but a point, a desired place. Thank you. Lord, for all of us who are doubting even our ability to grow, I ask that you will remove that doubt. And that this community can be used as an agent of change, of faith, of belief. So that we may grow in the knowledge of who you are and who we are in you. And that we may exercise those authorities for your glory. That's my prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank y'all for tuning in. I don't have an altar here. I usually have the offering basket on my altar. But for those of you who are here online, you can give if you so desire to this website. And I forgot I can't remember the title when I talked about giving, but that's a whole other conversation. And for those of you who are here, you're also freely willing to give. You can put it in this little whatever thing that is. Whatever that is. Yeah, you can cash app it. Oh, yeah, let me put my cash app up also. Oh, we also have food here. Please don't feel like obligated. This is not a obligation thing, but those of you who understand what giving is, you know what I mean, you understand, but this is not an obligation thing. Obviously, this is free because it's on Facebook, right? So, so it's not like you know what I mean. But we got food here. For those of you who are here, we're going to fellowship. Probably play some songs. Got Ant here. But you guys, you are dismissed.
Thank
Peace.
you, man. Thank you.
Yeah, no doubt.